Welcome everybody to the Scale Up Show. This is your host Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest back with me today. I have Alexander DeRitter, who is a founder and CTO of Smith OS. Smith OS, if you missed episode 1, created an AI operating system with the first of its kind, specifically for AI agents, which is, I don't know, something I'm obsessed with now. Alexander, welcome. Happy to have you back on the show, man.
So happy to be here.
Okay, so we covered the whole last episode talking about agents, something new that you're dropping that your tech team is going to kill you for. So we're not going to get into that now. So if you missed that, go back to episode 1 because there's some fire that we talk about in there that I've never talked about with anyone before on the show. So definitely check it out. But today we're talking about more forward facing, right? There's a lot happening. I literally watched an episode of, it was from Y Combinator, where Sam Altman was interviewed a couple days ago. This is as of mid-November. And, one of the questions that was asked to him was, hey, what's happening in next year, the next 12 months that you're really excited about? And he's like, AGI. So I was, that piqued my interest, and there's a lot going back and forth on that. So, obviously you're deep in this. You're realizing a lot. You've been working with AI since I think it was 2014 you mentioned, or something along the way, machine learning, right? Was that 2014?
2008.
2008. Holy cow. Okay, even longer. So what's your take on AGI coming in 2025 or 2026? And where do you see the future of this whole crazy thing we call technology heading?
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Sam Altman thing. Now, so very interestingly, if you look at the way that his deal with Microsoft is structured, is that they need to share all of their code and advancements until they reach AGI.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. So if he were to say we're going to have AGI next year, what it's also signaling is, Microsoft or others pony up more money if you still want access to my tools.
Yeah.
All right. So whatever he's saying then around AGI, you have to take with a big grain of salt, a big grain of business salt. And the other clue he's given, yeah, AGI will come out and it will go unnoticed to most people. In fact, I don't think it's going to really be that earth-shattering at all. Okay, so let's break that down for a minute, because for a while, people have been saying when we hit AGI, it's going to set off a singularity event, right, with a self-improving cycle. And now, Sam, you're saying that's not going to happen? Okay, so what are we really talking about here? I think he is basically saying that the equivalent of GPT-5 with the scaling paradigm juxtaposed with the reasoner scaling at inference time on top of it, that those two things combined are going to make a really darn good combo. And that is, I think, what he will crown AGI, or the first AGI, so to speak. I think OpenAI is in a good position to be the first company to be able to make that claim, even as others are getting really close. We know that the team at XAI is working on reasoners. We know that Anthropic team is also working on reasoners. And we kind of already know that a lot of the Sonnet 3.5 new has had improved reasoning training, fine-tuning on it. So that is why it performs so well on coding tasks. And when it comes to reasoners, that's very important to know. Reasoners perform slightly worse. Interesting how that goes. It's just like school. They perform slightly worse in creative aspects, like writing, but perform better in hard sciences and mathematics. So sounds very familiar to your typical school student, right? Some kids are just like really good in math and not as good in languages, and vice versa, right? It's rare to find somebody who's good at both at the same time. So that's why the O1 models are slightly worse at writing and significantly better at hard reasoning. But the next generation of GPT, like GPT-5 class model, will just elevate the whole foundation of it. So the loss of writing skill in exchange for more reasoning, you will not feel it as much.
Hmm.
We'll still feel like better than what we have today.
And O1, you think it'll be multimodal as well, from what I'm reading, right? So we could use it with video or data or
Yeah,
attachments.
they'll layer it in. There's still stuff that they haven't given us today that they should have given based on their demo. But the challenge is that some of these functionalities and modalities just require way more compute. And I mean, it's easy for me to make something comparatively small that does something. It's kind of like, I'll finish my statement. But Elon Musk has been known to say it's very easy to put a prototype out. It's very hard to put it in production. So likewise, it's relatively easy to put something together that kind of like makes a demo of like video Sora style, right? But what you cannot forget is that there's like 100 million people who are going to hit that server and try to use it and need to have a good user experience. So some of these new modalities simply use so much more compute that at the scale that OpenAI is operating under, that doesn't scale so easily unless you have way more compute. And that's also like with reasoners, that's where they are using more tokens at the time of using it. So usage of their servers is going way up. And so the challenging part is not just how do you make such a model work with multimodal capabilities, but how do you make it work in a way that you optimally use hardware resources and then also have the hardware to scale it. And I think that is the harder part now because the paradigms are known for training the models, and it's just a game of scale. Yeah, there's more research, but by and large, this is another comment Sam made. It's like by and large, we know what to do. There's still a few problems to figure out, but we know what to do. And that is true. Like all they have to do is just scale up the two scaling paradigms of pre-training and inference, and they will get to something that is exceptionally impressive next year. But rolling that out, especially with multimodality, that's a whole game in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and I mean, thanks for the very descriptive breakdown of that. I think that was very strong, and you might want to. You didn't catch some of what Alexander was talking about. I want to rewind it, go back, re-listen to that again. I'm sure I will as well, just make sure I got all that. But like to break it down from more of a simplistic view, from my perspective, basically to re-say or rewire, understand what you're saying. What I hear you kind of communicating to me is basically that because it's so freaking resource intensive with that model, the physical world, we're there technically, but the physical world of what's needed to make that happen in a financially reasonable way is not there yet, right? Is that like
Mhm.
a one sentence descriptor of like what you're kind
Yeah,
of talking about, right?
and everything in context, right? Do you recall when they said that they envision AI assistants costing $2,000 a month? Do you recall that moment?
I don't actually. I don't remember that.
So everything in context, right? What they're really saying is, darn, we'll release ChatGPT, but it's too cheap. We cannot afford to do all this stuff we want to do with that kind of low subscription and still give a good user experience. So that's what they're grappling with right now.
Yeah, so that was where they were talking. Okay, I thought they were referring to Orion, right? Where they're saying it would be like $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Is that what you're talking about? That
Yeah,
model?
because they know where this is headed, and they know a $30 subscription won't be paying for the hardware it needs to run and give a good experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So if that's hit, and I know we're almost up out of time and we've gone over, where do you see the next phase of it? So let's say we hit that and it's figured out in the next 12 months. What's next? How does that affect the economy, work as we speak it, business, life? And I know that's not a deep answer, but feel free to give me like a 1 to 2 minute answer so we stay on track with where you're at time wise, man.
Yeah, I still think that I don't think it's going to be so earth shattering. I think the real revolution is going to come from agents. not from foundation models, and not even from reasoners. You you get to a point now with AI models where you ask them to do math and they're going to do math beyond my level of math, as an example. And if you, as a human, you can no longer evaluate whether it is good or bad, the utility to the masses dramatically decreases. So the next versions where this is going to make AI so smart that people many times are just going to have to defer to it and say, you know what, I just have to trust that this is right. But businesses can operate in that mode. They need proof, they need validation, they need checks and balances, right? And I think this is where agents come into play, because you can have tree of thought, you can have chain of thought, you can have multiple patterns of grounding and connecting with your systems. This in this economic application is where you're going to find the ROI in the industry, and that's transformative. But what's very interesting is that rising water lifts all boats. So stronger foundation models means that your agents that you create on top of it, your boat, so to speak, can also do a lot more and is a lot more capable. And we're going to see massive application of these things throughout the industry. I mean, there is not a single industry that will not be touched by agents, and it will be as profound as the internet, as the internet. Think of the 90s to where we are today. Agents are the application layer. Think of like the internet protocol, but think of internet web apps. Think of that as like agents. That's where you have the Facebooks of the world, right? The Reddits and the Twitters and the Gmails. It's the application layer. So today we have access to this technology, and it gets better every single week. It is glorious. So I believe every industry will be affected, and this will be a gradual change, but it is a very profound one and it has already begun.
Totally agree with you, Alexander. I could talk to you probably for another 2 hours on this, so we might have to have you back, man, and just go deeper and nerd out on this stuff. But where can people find you? Where can they find more about Smith OS? Because we are up on time.
Well, they can visit my LinkedIn or Twitter, ADRidder, ADRIDDER, or visit my site at smithos.com, SMYTHOS, and .com, and they can just try out making an agent for themselves with our agent that builds agents.
Love that, man. All right, Alexander, it was great seeing you. Look forward to seeing you all on the next episode.